Tableau's mission is to help people see and understand their data. We make a business intelligence platform that empowers our users to create highly interactive dashboards optimized for visual analysis that they can then share across their company to help their business make data-driven decisions. We believe that everybody, not just those with highly technical backgrounds, should be able to ask questions of their data and get answers to those questions all by themselves. And we take the same approach to location intelligence, which is why we partnered with Mapbox to help our customers get more out of their geospatial data. That's enough talking. Let's cut to the demo. As a quick primer before the case study today, I want to introduce all of us to the Tableau UI. So this is Tableau, the blank canvas. And this is what you'll see when you first enter the product as an author. You can see in the top left corner of the screen, I've already connected to a data set, in this case, urban forestry in DC. And Tableau has automatically categorized my data into dimensions and measures. It's also automatically identified each attribute in my data set by type, string, geographic, or number. Now, making a map in Tableau is really easy. I can just drag my geographic field onto the view, and Tableau knows that it should make a map automatically. I can even start doing things like filtering my data, such as trees by common name. And Tableau gives me a filter view that I can then use to get more out of my data. In this case, I'll do a single value dropdown, and now I can swap between all the different tree types in DC. In this case, I can see that bur oak trees are pretty widespread. Now, if I wanted to go one step further, I can even add background map layers into the product. In this case, I can add one of 20 different demographic data indicators coming directly from the ACS census as a background image. So now, in this view, I'm looking at household income across DC, and I can even go down to the census tract level of detail and choose my own color scheme. So just like that, I'm already able to ask questions of my data and find different correlations between different data sets. Now let's get over to the case study. So of course, with any data exploration journey, there's always got to be a backstory, right? Now in this case, the story's personal. So last year, I was planning a trip to New Orleans. And of course, I was looking forward to the fried chicken, the jazz, the beignets. But one thing that I also really enjoy doing when I travel is learning about the local population, more specifically about the challenges people face living in a certain place. So in this case, as I dug into the history of New Orleans and the people who live there, I discovered that this part of the country has had a historical battle against flooding. Of course, we might all remember the recent tragedies of Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Rita, but I was astonished to learn that the battle goes back even before that. For example, since 1940, this part of the country has lost over 2,000 square miles of land to the rising tides of the ocean. So when I heard that stat, I realized that I had to learn more, and I thought, what better way to do that than with Tableau and Mapbox? So what I want to do is walk you through the exact set of steps that I went through during my analysis. So in this particular case, we're looking at a background map view of the New Orleans area. And this map is really good for certain purposes. But in my specific case, I want to see a bit more color in the background. I want to make a bit of more engaging background map style. So I went into Mapbox, and I made my own custom background map style. Now, one of the nice things is, and we saw this a bit earlier, is that I can simply copy and paste this style URL of my custom style and bring that into Tableau. So I did just that earlier today. And let's take a look at my own custom map in Tableau. So that's great. And I'm happy that I can see this in the product. And immediately, I get to see a bit more visual feedback. For example, down here in the area around New Orleans, I can see a lot of pockmarking, right? How the land and water intermix. And that might be a clue to me as, oh, this is the place where maybe the water's overtaking the landscape. Again, this is Louisiana today. But my next question is, to put that 2,000 square miles number into context, what does the loss of land actually look like? So what I did was I went online to the CPRA, the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority, the organization in charge of monitoring and managing flood risk in this part of the country. And I downloaded a data set of their 50-year flood projections for this part of the country, given normal flood scenarios and no action taken today. I put that into a background map style and brought that back into Tableau. So this is what Louisiana could look like in 50 years. In case you missed that, let me go back over that one more time. Keep your eyes on this area around New Orleans. So this is today. And this is what it could be in 50 years. So now when I saw this, I was blown away. And I felt like I had a really good understanding of how bad this problem could be. So then my next logical question was, all right, what are we going to do about it, right? Now, as I mentioned, the CPRA is in charge of managing the flood risk. And they actually have a plan put together a couple of years ago to build a network of levees and wall-like structures in certain areas around the southern Louisiana coastline. So I downloaded that data set as a shapefile, and I brought that directly into Tableau. Let's add it to the view here. And just to help some of you folks, maybe in the back over there, I'll change the color to be dark. I'll increase my opacity, and I'll actually grab my description field from my data set and put that onto the view as well. So now I can see the levee structures where they're going to be built around Louisiana, and all these marks are actually interactive. So I can hover over each segment and get a nice summary of things like how tall the wall might be, how long it might be, where it might start, and where it might end. So this is great. Right now I'm getting more information on my map. But now I have more questions. One of my questions is, why is there so much land out here outside the wall next to the Gulf of Mexico? Right? Why are we not protecting this part of the land also? If only I had another view of the state to get more information, if only I had more context, right? Well, actually I do, because Tableau now supports satellite imagery directly out of the box. So with just a few clicks, I can actually change that satellite view, and immediately I have more information. Now I can see, oh, a lot of this place outside the wall boundaries actually seems to be largely uninhabited. So maybe, given my limited time and resources as a CPRA, it might make more sense for me to prioritize the places that have more people living in them as opposed to fewer. So that could make sense. But now I have more questions. For example, over here near Morgan City and Patterson, there seems to be a settlement, but no levee structure. If I zoom out a little bit and go over to the right side near Port Sulphur, again, we have this long list of areas that are settled, but no levee. So what's going on here, right? Why are we not allocating resources to protecting these areas? So I went back and I thought more about it, and I thought about, if I were the CPRA, what factors might I consider when deciding where to build my levee structures? And I thought about two key factors: population and flood depth. And I was thinking about these two in context of each other, as opposed to independently. And I think that's important for a couple reasons. Right? Let's think about it. So if I just thought about population on its own, and I wanted to protect the areas of the country that had the most people, well, I might end up building a levee around a place that has a lot of people, but low flood risk. Right? Not the best use of resources. Now, on the flip side, if I just focus on places that are going to have a lot of flood water, you end up protecting areas that might have a lot of water, but fewer people. So what we actually want is the intersection of these two data sets, right? The places where there are more people and more water. So I intersected those two data sets together, and I brought that back into Mapbox as a custom background layer. And again, with that copy and paste of the URL, I brought that into Tableau. Let's see that view now. So let me explain this really fast. We see a heat map here in the background, and the dark red areas are the places where we have the most intersection of people and flood water depth. So now, if I'm the CPRA, I might want to focus my resources on these areas, right? And a lot of this seems to make sense. And actually, I get a few of my questions answered. For example, down here near Morgan City, well, I can see that, oh, this place is actually not projected to be under that much impact. So maybe that's why I can be OK with not building a levee around Patterson. But still, I don't have answers to my other questions around Port Sulphur on the right side. There's still a lot of people there and a lot of risk, right? And actually Grand Isle down here to the south, similar kind of story. And now even Gonzales up to the north, right? There's all these dark red areas that have no levees around them. So what else is going on? That's when I went back and I thought more about different factors that I might consider if I were the CPRA. And the next one that I hit upon was economic impact. Right? It makes sense, right, to think about the places that have the most economic impact or importance to my local communities, my state, my country, and protect those areas even if there aren't that many people living there. So I went back online, downloaded another data set that contains economic impact projection data. And what I want to do now is actually layer that as a heat map on top of this view directly in Tableau. So I'm actually not going to step through and talk through exactly what I'm doing. If you have any questions, find me afterwards. But what I'm going to do here is just create a dual layered map in Tableau. And I'm actually going to start removing things from that top map you see there. Then I'll go ahead and add my own custom spatial file data set, which is the census tracts in Louisiana. And again, this comes from the census. I'll go ahead and I'll color those by the damage projection. We'll give it a sec to load. And then I will disaggregate the measures. I'll make that into a heat map. And then finally, I'll layer it on top of the other map. Now, this view actually isn't really that helpful. In my opinion, there's a lot going on here. The background is really distracting. And it was useful a few minutes ago. But for this view, it's probably not the best view. So I'm actually going to go back and go back to the original Tableau view that I saw earlier, because Tableau's background maps are optimized and designed for emphasis on the data on top of the map. That's what I have here. And I'm a bigger fan of making the mark size a little bit bigger, and I prefer this orange color, so I'm going to do just that. So now I have a few more answers to more of my questions. Now I can see, oh, Port Sulphur on the right side, OK, there's still some economic impact, but relative to other parts of the state, maybe it's less, so maybe it didn't meet that cut line. Grand Isle actually doesn't even appear on this map view, so maybe that's why it was cut from the project. And up here, Gonzales, it looks to be a similar story to Port Sulphur, but I don't know. All right, but now I have more questions that I can then go back and find the right data and go and answer those questions as well. And if I had a bit more time, I might end up with something that looks kind of like this. This is a view that I can actually publish and share across my organization to allow others to step through exactly the analysis that I've done and shown today. For example, I can step through all the different maps that I created, and even go to the last one, where all the views here are fully interactive and synced together. So I could select certain marks, and I could get the underlying damage of those marks that I selected. I could even start selecting different wall segments, and I could see how much the cost of those segments stacks up against the overall cost of all of my projects in the view. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today on this journey. I hope you had a blast. Let's have a great rest of the conference. Thanks.